Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams. This week we begin with some confusion, if you will, surrounding the future of a $150 million Knoxville Science Museum project. We told you when Mayor India Kincannon said that Jim Clayton was withdrawing funding for the museum and that he would be returning the land that it was going to be built on to the city. Well, this led to a little bit of confusion. Clayton calling Mayor Kincannon's statement surprising. Without going into any detail, Clayton added that, quote, a great science museum is in our future, end quote. But now the question is, where, when, so many questions. So with a city spokesperson telling 6 News, the Science Museum is still not going to be built at the site of the former safety building. Even after Clayton issued his statement, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. So I'm joined now by Knoxville City Council member Gwen McKenzie to talk a little bit about this and a whole lot more that's going on around Knoxville. First of all, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk about the Science Museum. I guess just as far as what you know, where do things stand? It seems like, we heard one thing and then Jim Clayton came out and said, no, hang on, there is going to be one. So right. I guess is that kind of the status quo for right now?
So that's the status, and I'm happy to hear that status, that there is a science museum that he's still committed to, but not necessarily in that particular location. So right. Looking forward to future, conversations to see what is his thought process about. Does he already have a location in mind? What does that look like? We already have the Muse there, which is a right. great, very popular science museum for kids. So hopefully, who knows?
Yeah. But again, we see this in other cities too. Science museums. I mean, obviously we have the Muse, but again, it's just another added piece to the puzzle for Absolutely. Education, for young and old, really, to go and enjoy.
Yes.
The question is, though, okay, so now if the land is going to be used for something else, and it's being, prepped, I guess, but where do we go from here then? Because that is a prime piece of real estate just Absolutely. On the east side of downtown.
Absolutely. So I think first things first, we need to go through that process and have the land conveyed back to the city, and then look at a public process. Definitely want to hear from community members around, in that neighborhood and around the city to say, what are some of the things that you'd like to see in that area? And then we go from there. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Sure, no, yeah, I understand. And of course, a lot of people are probably going to be, you guys may have already been hearing like, hey, we need to do this, do this,
Absolutely.
do this, because
Yes.
It seems like we went through this before when they announced we're going to be tearing down, we'll just say the old police station and getting ready to move it. What do we need to put there? Everything we'd heard from the Science Museum. People even talked about the Coliseum, as a time to maybe build something new next to the old one. We've seen development there. You've already got the parking space with the parking garages.
Absolutely.
But again, also housing as well, a huge need. So how important is it? I mean, we'll go through the public process, but this needs to be really carefully decided upon, because I know, talking to some other developers in other cities, they said, you have to remain true to yourself, who you are. Just don't put something there for the sake of putting something there.
Right.
It has to serve a purpose, and hopefully, kind of what we're seeing with the ballpark,
right.
hope to lead to continued expansion and growth economically, especially on that side of town.
Absolutely, and I think we'll definitely take a strategic look at it. Again, public input is very important in this process, and so from there we'll walk through it.
Yeah. Still a ways to go, though, on
Absolutely.
This one, right? Early stages.
Well, I mean, all of this is hot off the press.
Right, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, and since we're talking kind of hot off the press, the ballpark is still hot off the press. I mean, it has not been open very long now.
Yes.
It's built. And, if you go back, to Hollywood, if you build it, they will come. And in this, one here we're talking fans, but also businesses. There's more to this. Last week we were talking with Randy Boyd, and he made a comment, said this hopefully will serve as a link back to East Knoxville. It's already a link for the old city, but also open up the gates for the future development along the Magnolia corridor. So how hopeful are you? I mean, this now seems to be the next big step, and to really continue this process now that the ballpark is now on its feet and running.
Well, absolutely. And that was one of my biggest attractions to supporting the stadium, was that it would be that economic driver, that catalyst that would revitalize Magnolia. And I don't know if you remember back when Magnolia was thriving, we had so many businesses, restaurants. I mean, there were people up and down Magnolia all the time, and there were thriving businesses. And so, do I see the stadium making that, bringing so many people back? I mean, the old city and downtown,
right.
Even with the opening up the stadium, people being excited about it. So now people are going to start venturing down Magnolia, who've maybe never been down Magnolia. So I think that the businesses that are already there are going to start seeing some of those increased revenues, increased foot traffic. And so I just want people to realize that there are so many possibilities. Magnolia, East Knoxville is going to be that place where people are going to want to be, not just to come to a ballpark, you know, and go to a game or go to a concert, but to be able to explore the walkability, you know, from one end to the next.
And we've seen some of the landscape change there, especially Magnolia, close to Hall of Fame, where they did the kind of the beautification, if you will, with the median, the trees and whatnot.
Yes.
You kind of start to see that development. Is that what you're hoping will continue along with added business?
Absolutely, and so that's the mayor's plan. That is part of the mayor's plan. Now, what I'd love to see is let's jump from one end to the other and then meet in the middle,
right.
because at the far end of Magnolia, where it transitions into Asheville Highway, we have Burlington. And so,
Right.
and with Burlington, we're now getting ready to see the first fire hall being
Right.
built in, I think, about 30 years. That's going to be a $50 million investment. We see finally the Burlington Streetscape project is going to get started along in conjunction with that. And then we have Chihowie Park. We have the Emerald Youth, you know, their complex that will be coming into that space as well. And so I just think that there's just so many great possibilities, so many wonderful things that are going to happen, and people are really going to start now seeing us thriving in East Knoxville.
Have you already started to hear at least some of the interest or see some of that from outside of the East Knoxville area saying, hey, we want to move in here, establish whether it's a business or what have you?
Well, there have been some people that have inquired. So, you know, and we're open to any and all suggestions and opportunities for people to be able to reinvest and invest in East Knoxville.
I know when we heard about the ballpark, we talked with economic developers in Fort Wayne, because I know the mayor had gone up there and had spoken with some people up in that area, also in Birmingham after they built their ballpark. Both those areas, in the 10 years or so since those ballparks have opened, have seen over $1 billion in investment in both of those cities and those downtown areas. Obviously, that would be huge, and it would not only benefit East Knoxville, but really Knoxville as a whole and Knox County.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm just really excited about all the possibilities to come in the future.
So let's talk about housing for a second as well. More and more people seem to be moving into the area, that is for sure. What still needs to be done here? I mean, we're seeing apartments going up left and right. We're seeing homes being built, but it still seems like we're still trying to play some catch up, obviously, as Knoxville continues to grow.
Yeah. So absolutely, I mean, you can look at, even with KCDC as an example, there are people who are still been, you know, they've been waiting, they're on housing lists for some, maybe I think over a year. And so the housing crisis is real. And so what we need to continue to do is focus more on these private partnerships, private and mixed-use investments as far as the housing, the type of housing. I'll use First Creek at Austin as a prime example. Beautiful, beautiful apartment living facilities and housing. And they're also going to have a senior component with senior housing there as well. And so when you look around, these are the types of developments that we have to continue to encourage here around the city, and even moving out toward the county, if you will.
Yeah.
Because again, the housing crisis is real. We still have to deal with the homeless population. You know, we also have to acknowledge that there are homeless youth that are in our community as well. And so those are some issues that we are going to have to continue to focus on. But housing is really number one.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just not building it, but also affordability.
Absolutely.
As well for a lot of these people. And I guess in a way it's maybe a good problem to have. I mean, Knoxville seems to be a very popular place these days, whether they're coming in from across the state or from as far away as California and other places out west. It seems like there is a big draw to East Tennessee.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot to offer. It's kind of, I think we started out as kind of like a college town, and people now say that, you know, Knoxville has so much more to offer. I mean, you talk about walkability. We have some of the most beautiful parks and trails as well. I mean, it is a great place to live, work, and play, and to raise a family.
Definitely, definitely. I do want to touch on real quick, it's a topic we've been talking about a lot here, the Gay Street Bridge. Just kind of your thoughts. I know we had the mayor on a few weeks ago talking about that as well. This is not going to be something that's going to solve itself overnight, but hopefully by the end of the year, at some point, or toward the end of the year, we'll be walking across it. I guess that is the plan.
Well, I mean, having it to be a pedestrian bridge, at least it will be serving a purpose, and people will be able to use it. And I think, you know, where we are right now is looking at the options. Can it also be used for emergency vehicles if needed, and for buses? I know that there was some concern from businesses on that end across in South Knoxville about, you know, how people are going to get to them. People will get there. You know, there's a lot of great restaurants and businesses over there. So right now we're looking at $2 million, but we're also actually getting a quote to see what would it cost? What would that cost look like to even replace the bridge?
Right.
You know, again, that would be on the next administration.
You're right, exactly, yeah. But I do know, yeah, in South Knoxville there, it is a little bit, once you cross over, it's still a little ways to go to get to some of the businesses and the restaurants, and there are apartments going up down there. And we've got the trails, or the rails that are being converted to trails, the Rails to Trails program too. But I guess that is a concern for those in South Knox, is just how will people continue to get to us without the Gay Street Bridge? You still have the Henley, you do have the South Knoxville Bridge, I guess, on the James White Parkway, but it does open up some questions. UT pedestrian bridge at all? Anything new from that you're hearing about? I know that seems to be a topic too, because when you look across on the south side of the river, every time it seems like you drive along Neyland, there's another apartment building going up. So it has developed in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely.
A lot of people asking, okay, again, it comes back to the walkability part of all of this and the pedestrian bridge. Anything new from that?
So I don't think anything new from that perspective. You know, we were awarded that raised grant, so it's just a matter of, you know, when all of that will get started. What does that look like?
Okay.
But yes, it's supposed to happen. I know a lot of people always say, well, why don't you take those funds and you know, replace the Gay Street Bridge with a federal grant? Whatever they're applied for, you cannot change the scope of the work. So it has to be applied to that raised bridge.
Okay. Just about out of time. I do have to ask you, what is next for you? You've been vice mayor. You've obviously been on the city council. Any thought moving forward for you now?
Well, let me just say that from the famous words of Halloran Hilton Hill, anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
All right, so the door is open to just about anything.
Well, the door's always open, right?
The door's always open.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate you coming by.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Stay with us, don't go anywhere. Our panel of pundits will be weighing in next. We'll be back in about 90 seconds. All right, welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from Knoxville City Council member Gwen McKenzie. Let's bring in our panel of pundits to discuss what she had to say, as well as a number of other topics. Joining us as always, Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and Michael Covington. Great to see all three of you as always. Well, first of all, let's just talk about what Councilmember McKenzie had to say as far as the Science Museum. That seems to be right hot off the press, as she put it. I mean, it's still a big topic of discussion. Thought we were going to have this building, this museum built, and now we've got a piece of land, and it's been leveled, and it's being prepped, I guess, but we don't know what's going to happen there. So Craig, kind of get us started here. When you first heard about this from Jim Clayton, his comments, the mayor's comments, the confusion, what kind of went through your mind about what's going on here?
Disappointed.
Yeah.
I thought that downtown was making incredible progress forward with the opening of the baseball stadium and the other developments that are going on, but it hit a bump in the road with the announcement that there wouldn't be a science center there. And that's an expensive proposition for the city, because the city spent $70 million plus to redo the safety complex at the St. Mary's campus. So we spent $70 million and didn't have the Science Museum in return. So, I mean, you know, the discussions that I'm hearing about, you know, perhaps the Science Museum is still in the future, it is a good thing. I mean, I would like to see it happen, but apparently it's not at that site. And so not being at that site opens up a whole raft of things that could possibly go there. And I think you mentioned it. Do we need a new civic coliseum? Well, the answer to that question is yes, we need a new civic coliseum, but do we have the money and the funds to build it at that location? I mean, my personal feeling is I don't want to see it in condos. I want to see something that benefits the whole city. You know, that's a public facility of some sort, but we'll have to see, as Gwen says, through a public process.
Yeah, and Courtney, it's kind of like the ballpark, and we'll talk about the ballpark a little bit later, but whatever goes here can also be kind of that link, I guess, to the east side of town that we've been looking for. Hopefully the Science Museum was going to be that, whether it's a Coliseum or what have you. So after hearing what Gwen McKenzie had to say and kind of what you're hearing as far as whatever's going on concerning the Science Museum, what are your thoughts as well?
I choose to look at this as an opportunity because that is a prime piece of real estate. And what we know as a city is we need more pieces of civic furniture. And that is a really great place for us to figure out what other kinds of civic furniture would add to Knoxville's community, add to our culture, add to our entertainment, add to the public good. So I'm choosing to look at this as an opportunity. Now we can dig back into actually what I think something definitely happened. You know, the city had the deal with Jim Clayton to pay $100 million to build this thing and then a $50 million endowment. And I think for whatever reason, perhaps Jim Clayton got some cold feet, maybe tried to renegotiate the deal, and the city said, no, this is what we agreed to. And so that's when Jim Clayton, perhaps as a negotiating tactic, said, well, then I'm not going to build this anymore. And then when it became public, he's trying to interject some chaos and confusion to maybe get his way. But, that is the city's property. There are a lot more opportunities for us as a city than to have a science museum, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to really think about what additional pieces of civic furniture would we like in that spot.
Yeah, and it is going to be important to see what they put there, Michael. I mean, I don't know if you heard, I referenced a conversation I had with Cornell Wesley, who is the economic planner for the city of Birmingham. We were talking about the ballpark at the time, but he was talking about just don't put something there for the sake of putting something there. There's got to be a long-term reason why it's there, and it's got to be for a purpose, part of who you are, your identity. So obviously a lot of thought process needs to go in. We can put a lot of different things there, but it is, as Courtney just mentioned again, is a very important, good piece of real estate for the city to develop something on.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic to discuss in terms of what could be done futuristically. From an intellectual standpoint, I'm still back at that point of, at what point did this project go awry? An old Latin expression, post hoc ergo propter hoc. In this situation, with the meaning being after this, therefore because of this, I'm curious as to what the this was. Where did that bump in the road happen? As Courtney was describing, maybe something happened and the negotiations didn't go the way they needed to. I'm just curious about what that was and if that will impact the future decisions of what we might do with that land.
Yeah, yeah. Again,
Actually, I think it was the pandemic. I mean, if you go through the timeline of the project, things were going gangbusters up till about 2020, and then, boop, things stopped.
Right.
And of course, the concept then of a hands-on museum, people wandering through a museum, touching everything during a pandemic. Whoa, that's not what we want to do. And it didn't seem to recover the steam that it had moving forward after the pandemic. So, I agree. We'll probably sometime hear about exactly what happened. But I think the pandemic really slowed down the planning for it, and we'll have to move forward after that.
Yeah, it may still take some time, that is for sure. Well, another topic we do want to talk about, a Knox County trustee employee fired amid a state investigation. What should Knox County trustee Justin Biggs be doing right now? This has been another hot topic that has just come out here recently. So, Courtney, I want to start with you and kind of get your thoughts on when you heard all of this and what should be happening right now.
This office seems to be fraught with corruption. It cannot escape corruption. The only person in recent modern history who's escaped corruption is Ed Shoust. So I think we need to very critically look at this office and its function and determine if it should be an elected office or not, because there is this history and pattern of corruption at the top with the trustee's office. This should be one that should go under the Knox County mayor. The Knox County mayor should appoint this. We were talking about this off camera, but the trustee's office charges fees to move money around to the city and the county, and that's how they make money and support all this staff. So, I think it's one office that we should take a critical look at to see if this is something that should be brought under the county mayor's office and not be elected. Now, again, because we have these patterns of corruption, I think, we need to get Ed Shoust in there to do a little tutorial, maybe record a training video so that all future Knox County trustees know how to avoid corruption in the workplace.
Michael, you go along with that? Do we need to have some type of training prior to whoever sits in that role?
No. What we need is honesty. What we need is a trustee with character. What we have now is a trustee whose character is under scrutiny. And it looks as though he was not the person for that job if this is the way he is conducting it. So I hope that the investigation concludes quickly and that we get this behind us as quickly as possible and we find us a trustee that we can trust.
Okay. Craig, we're going to hold you for the next question.
Oh, okay.
Unless there's something you wanted to chime in on real quick.
Well, it's just that there's really very few apparatuses available to remove the trustee from office, either an ouster or a recall, unless he sees the light and retires. But, most people now, when they're investigated, when something bad happens, I didn't do anything wrong. It's a witch hunt. So I don't anticipate him resigning from office.
Okay. Another big topic we want to talk about, Senator Bill Hagerty sharing a timeline for TVA being able to form a quorum. This happened this week. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The board of TVA is appointed by the president. It will be confirmed by the United States Senate. The White House right now is going over a series of candidates. They'll be interviewing those candidates, so I hope that a board quorum will be present very soon.
All right, so he says very soon. Michael, I'm going to start with you down at the far end. TVA, obviously, they're down a few people, as you've seen here over the last few weeks. And of course, they need to have two more to get there, or at least one more, I think, to get the quorum right there at 4. Well, you need 5, is that correct, to get the quorum? They had, yeah. What do you see developing here with TVA and the situation there from the top? I mean, from the president, saying what he has, and the firings to the article that we had from our 2 senators. What's next?
Well, I would hope that the president had a couple of replacements in mind as he let these folks go. That may not have been the case. If it isn't, I am certain that he can identify good people to go onto the TVA board. If he is having a difficulty with that, I would strongly suggest he give Courtney Piper a call and allow Courtney to assist him with identifying some professionals that could
We
fill
did not
that.
discuss this.
Why
We did not discuss
Why doesn't he
this.
name Courtney to the board? That'd be a simple solution.
That was going to be my fallback position,
Okay.
but no, I think that I've always believed that we've needed some folks on that board that have some connection to the community and have an appreciation for who we are and what we're about and what our needs are, which is lower utility bills. So I'm hoping that happens, and I'm hoping that our stewards, our senator or senators, and our representatives get busy and help with the process of identifying folks that can help us help TVA.
All right, I tell you what, everybody hold your places. We do need to take a break. The clock says we need to go to commercial, so stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Tennessee This Week. I want to return to our topic that we finished with in the last segment there concerning with TVA. I do want to give Courtney and Craig a chance to chime in here. We heard from Michael. You've already been nominated for Michael to be a part of the board there at TVA. But Courtney, kind of give me your thoughts, though, on what is happening. What do you see as possibly could happen here?
Historically, over the last couple of decades, the president nor the Senate has prioritized filling these TVA board seats. There have been times in the last 20 or 30 years that the board has operated without a full seat, without a quorum. So no administration has ever taken TVA as a priority, which is mind-boggling because it is the nation's largest public power provider, and it is 30 miles away from the country's largest science and energy national lab, and in the back door of our flagship land-grant university. So I don't see a scenario where the president is really going to prioritize, and the White House is really going to prioritize vetting these nominations, and then the Senate has to do that too with an appointment. History would tell me that that's not going to happen. So what we are facing as ratepayers and as customers in the Tennessee Valley is a board that will have to vote on a new budget, and they won't be able to do that. So what does that mean for ratepayers, for people in the valley? What does it mean for reliability? What does it mean for these big economic development projects that are going to require new sources of generation? What does this mean for technology advancements with advanced nuclear if we don't have a fully functioning board that can sign off on an integrated resource plan, on a budget, and on a strategic direction for the utility?
Craig, we're short on time, about a minute to go, so I want you to jump in.
Okay, well, quickly, once they do have a quorum, the question for me is, do they undo the last decision on the new president of TVA? Right. And the senators both said in their magazine article that they wanted a president from out of the company. And the person that the old TVA board appointed was an insider.
Insider, right.
So my main question would be, is he going to be a short timer once the board quorum is returned?
Yeah, because could be a lot more chapters written in this piece,
Could
that
be.
is for sure. Hey, we got about 30 seconds left. If you don't know, every time we get ready to record Tennessee This Week, Michael Covington comes in here, smile on his face about the ballpark. I know you've got your seats out there, so let me ask you real quick, your thoughts. We've had opening day.
Yes.
Is it everything you thought it would be?
More.
Really?
It really is. It really is. It is a private investment dream come true. And it is everything that East Knoxville could possibly want at this time. And I hope it continues to flourish.
And that's the whole goal of it, right? Not more than baseball, more than soccer, help out the local economy. Well, that's going to wrap things up. So glad you spent your afternoon with us. We'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.